Bordeaux is not only the top Grand Cru, that represents 0.5% of Bordeaux.
How do you go about at Château Angélus to try to connect with the younger generation?
At universities, in wine clubs, they are interested, they are curious, and they come and visit us afterwards. We also created a cuvée, accessible wine, so they could discover the universe of Angélus. And this wine is really exciting for them. They love it. I would target more the young sommelier. When we do the assemblage, the blend, there's something very special that usually we don't open up, so we do it once a year. And at the estate, we're asking young sommeliers to come and participate, to give us their idea, their feedback, their opinion, because they are ambassadors and they are the one talking about our wines. So if they don't know enough our wines, who would talk?
How do you balance tradition and innovation?
When we speak about innovation, for me, it's more evolution.
With climate change in mind, how do you think it is impacting Bordeaux?
We are really seeing extreme changes in terms of climatic events. And we hear about some grape varieties that would not continue to survive. I don't believe that. I think the vine is really resistant, can cope with these changes, and this all brings us back to humility. We have to handle, and in terms of wine tasting, it doesn't affect the wine. I recall what my grandfather, that I love so much, had taught me. He said, wine is about sharing, is about friendship, is a trip through time, through history.
If you could share a bottle of Château Angélus with any historical figure, who would it be?
I think it would be...
Welcome to the first episode of The Magic of Wine. I'm Gregory, the CEO and founder of Cru Wine, and we're thrilled and honored to have my friend Stéphanie, who's the CEO and owner of Château Angélus, join us for this first ever episode of The Magic of Wine.
Thank you, Greg, for inviting me.
We're both young, and one of the themes around the world of wine today is how to engage with the younger generation. Some people say that the younger generation maybe drinks a little bit less or maybe differently. Mm-hmm. How do you go about at Château Angélus to try to connect with the younger generation, and what initiatives are you taking?
This is one of the major focus and subjects that we're experimenting, facing during this time. We've been for, I'd say, a few decades already targeting and talking and making people taste and discover our wines. When I say people, I mean young generation at universities, in wine clubs, like enology clubs, in universities or business schools. So we really attention to go and meet these young people. They are interested, they are curious, and they come and visit us afterwards. We also created a cuvée called Château Angélus. When I created this cuvée, this wine, I thought, okay, I want to have an accessible wine. I want to have not only young people, but of course I was targeting mostly young people, that were going to have an accessible wine and more affordable wine as well, so they could discover the universe of Angélus. And this wine is really, really exciting for them. They love it.
I've been lucky as well to go to the chateau a number of times, and that's always quite an experience, of course. What do you think young drinkers are looking for the first time, let's say, that they start discovering Bordeaux in general?
Well, I think when they come to Bordeaux, they're really searching for authenticity and looking at the history of Bordeaux, the longevity, the singularity of Bordeaux is something very strong, but it's not sufficient. It's not enough. So Bordeaux really has to show that it goes through time, so the longevity is there, but also it can fit the expectation of a young consumer. And what would they be? Would be probably when you taste a wine, when a young person tastes a wine, be like, it is accessible, as just mentioned. You can't just tell them, oh, wait for 10, 20 years until your wine is ready. Because this can happen or happened. So we have to ensure that when we produce our wines, can be the Grand Vin, can be another cuvée, a young consumer can start enjoying the wine very early. So the wine is open, is fresh, is delicate, and has a lot of fruit as well. I think that's what really they are looking at. Having this expression, having the expression and the aromatic of the wine straight away. And also, as I said, showing that Bordeaux is not only the top Grand Cru, that represent 0.5% of Bordeaux.
Yes.
People tend to focus on the Grand Cru, which is, and Grand Cru are wonderful, but there are plenty of other wines in Bordeaux that are accessible, affordable, and superb.
Yes. No, I agree. And sometimes it can be a little bit scary to the world of fine wine. You mentioned one wine that you've developed, which is tailoring, which is more accessible. What are the kind of experiences or events are you doing that maybe is targeted at the younger generation to try to invite them?
Yeah.
Because I've been there. Bordeaux and the people from Bordeaux are the most inviting people in the world. It's magical when you're there. But what experiences or what events are particularly being organized to target the young generation?
Before answering that, I think it's very important to desacralize the wine. Of course, wine and Grand Cru are something that is really respected, and people pay special care and attention when they drink the wine. However, we have to be careful that people don't stand back too much from these wines because they consider they are too precious whatsoever. So I think we need to bring consumer closer, particularly the young generation. So in terms of events, I would target more the sommelier, the young sommelier. We organized the first edition of the Angélus Trophy that targets the young sommelier across the world. The first one was in Japan, where we have a jury that is going to select. I mean, there are three, but one will win the prize. That will be the one that has the best understanding of Angélus in terms of pouring, in terms of knowledge, in terms of experience, and this will be declined in other countries after Japan. And at the estate, we're asking young sommeliers to come and participate, to give us their idea, their feedback, their opinion once a year in our blending. When we do the assemblage, the blend, there's something very special that usually we don't open up. So we do it once a year and we invite young sommeliers. So it's only about sommelier, but it is a start. And I think young sommeliers are really people we should not forget because they are our ambassadors and they are the one talking about our wines. So if they don't know enough our wines, who would talk about our wines?
That's really great. Another topic that I would like to discuss with you is climate change. Mm-hmm. Although it has been present for decades, it is something that started appearing a little bit more among discussions, maybe 5-6 years ago, I guess more. So with climate change in mind, how do you think it is impacting Bordeaux? How do you think it is impacting Château Angélus? And what are you doing about it? Maybe not for immediately, but also with the sort of next 5 or 10, 20 years in mind.
You speak about climate change and you're absolutely right. I would even, add this characteristic of extreme. We are really seeing extreme changes in terms of climatic events. So we have more drought, more rain, more frost, more hail. We have, everything is more extreme and we have to handle it. So because I hear a lot of global warming, of course, global warming is present, but you cannot just sum it up to global warming because in certain vintages you don't have at all the heat or the sun that is lacking for some time. So we are really adapting. The vine itself is adapting to the conditions, and we, the vine growers, are really adapting as well. The pruning, we're adapting as well. The green harvest, the de-leafing, we're adapting the picking. I think it will not change radically the style of Bordeaux wines, but it is an evolution as we've had in the past decades. Would you consider that the wines produced in the 1940s, were the same that we're producing now? There are some wines that are really different in terms of style, linked to the period of time, and also linked, when I say period of time, with the knowledge, with the the means at the time, and also with the change, the climatic change. So yes, there are some changes, but I would say it's an evolution. It's the logical evolution. And we hear about some grape varieties that would not continue to survive. I don't believe that. I think the vine is really resistant, can cope with these changes, and this all bring us back to humility. We have to handle, we protect ourselves, we have some devices to protect ourselves against frost. We have some balloons that are blown with helium and have some salt crystals that will be swollen by the cloud and will avoid the transformation of water into ice, so it remains water. Same for the frost. We'll have some wind turbines and some candles that will warm up the atmosphere. In the end, nature will really decide, so we limit the effect, we protect ourselves. And in terms of wine tasting, it doesn't affect the wine. And then we'll pick earlier or later if we see that the climatic conditions justify it.
Yes.
If you take, for example, the 90s, beginning of the 90s, we were harvesting with higher volumes of sugar, hence alcohol. Now we are reducing it.
Yes.
So it's also, I'd say, a matter of what people are expecting, not in terms of wine style, but in terms of alcohol. We are adapting as well.
Yes. In light of the climate change that we're talking about now, one of the things that I have seen when I was walking around Bordeaux for En Primeur 2022 was a lot of pictures and a lot of stories around how people were handling climate change and how much they learned as well from the 2003 vintage, which was a very hot vintage, just like 2022, but people were doing, winemakers were doing something different in 2022 to combat essentially a little bit that heat. Could you tell us a little bit more about what you guys were doing at Château Angélus?
In 2022, what was the most surprising were the Cabernet Franc, our old Cabernet Franc that really resisted so well. You recall the pictures that you saw that we picked just before the harvest with grapes, like the old Cabernet Franc that were showing some round and very healthy and juicy grapes. They did not suffer at all from the drought. And the reason for that was that we have some vegetable crop in the surface that allow us to keep the humidity. So that's in the surface. And further deep, we have a long root system because of the old vine that I mentioned. So very long root system enabling the vine really to get the water and the minerals that they need. So they never lacked water, although it was dry. They got the water that was necessary because, we have clay and limestone.
Yes.
Clay and limestone, they are a tank of water.
Yes.
So, the vine were in a way protected, in surface and further down. That's why they did not show any sign of drought. They did not suffer. But it's not right everywhere. If you have younger vines, they don't have this root system. They can't go deep and deep to get the water.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily also, depending where you are on the terroir, you don't necessarily have clay and limestone in your terroir.
Yes.
And you don't necessarily have the crop cover that I was mentioning, the vegetable cover. So this really is linked to the terroir and to the, I would say, the vineyard management as well.
Yes. No, we've seen also some more Cabernet Franc being planted around Bordeaux for the future. Now, the next topic that I would like to talk with you about, Château Angélus is such a stunning estate with such a history. I think eighth generation, that's right. So as a guardian of such a historic estate, how do you balance tradition and innovation?
Well, as you mentioned, I'm a custodian of a legacy. I consider myself as a link of a chain with a duty of transmission. I would say that when we speak about innovation, for me, it's more, or innovation, modernity, it's more evolution. Mm-hmm. So I have to look at the future, to continue to bring Angélus, at the next helmet, but at the same time, respecting really the past. The work that has been done by the past generation, my ancestors, while embracing the future. So it's really a balance that comes naturally depending on the needs that we have.
Yeah.
If I take an example, there are some plots that are worked by some electrical tractors that are lighter, that are autonomous, and there are other plots that would be worked by some horses that have more steepness, that are more fragile in terms of age, younger vines or older vines. So the horse and the person behind will be more cautious. If there's something happening, there's a human behind. So we really balance it naturally, depending on the needs. And I think it's great. I never oppose one to another. On the contrary, I like to put them together.
Do you have a favorite vintage? I know it's probably a difficult question, but on a personal note, I'm sure the listeners would like to know this. Do you have a favorite vintage, and why?
It is a very difficult question. It's it feels like as if you were asking me to pick amongst my children.
Yes.
I will pick two. I should pick like 10, or I'll pick two. I'd say 2001 that I've loved from the very beginning. It was coming just after 2000, so people did not really focus on it. I love the flesh of 2001, its definition, its subtlety, its finesse, its elegance, and the fact that it was open very early, at a very early stage. We talked about that. There are some vintages that you need to wait for a longer time. This one was open at an early stage. 2000, for example, for me, needed to be waited like 15 to 20 years before being fully open. Now it's a wonderful wine,
Yes.
but it took for me a long time before being open. And I would take 2022, that for me is an extraordinary vintage, out of this world, out of the time. I don't know, it's incredible. We've just mentioned, the particularity of the climate, and making such a wine with the aromatic purity that we have, with the definition, the finesse, the elegance. I think there's everything in this wine in terms of harmony. Everything is perfectly balanced. And what I love in 2022 too is really the length and the evolution. So it's really subtle, it's very progressive. And the Cabernet Franc that is very present in the wine brings so much freshness, spiciness, and a very long finish. It feels like it's it will never end, it's forever.
Excellent. The theme of the podcast is the magic of wine. And so is there a moment in your career at Château Angélus that truly captures the magic of wine for you?
Yes, you mentioned magic. I would I will make a parallel with emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And there is one experience I faced that really is something I will remember forever. It was 8 years ago in Seattle. After a masterclass, I was invited to have a very casual dinner at the end of the masterclass. And the wine distributor who organized it said to me, "I have a surprise for you. We're going to share a bottle of Château Angélus from a vintage that you've never tasted before." I thought, oh, how come he would know what I've tasted or not?
Yes.
But he was right at the time. I had never tasted a 1928. And this moment was incredible. The first seconds were like, the wine is in his youth, is still there. It's incredible, because there were 9 chances out of 10 that the wine was going to be gone. But it was there, it was present. And a few other seconds are really the biggest emotion I had. Was like, I realized it was the first time I was tasting a vintage that my great-grandfather had produced. And so I recall what my grandfather, that I love so much, had taught me. He said, wine is about sharing, is about friendship, is a trip through time, through history. And at that time, I really saw all of these pictures, all of this image that, illustrated the time. My great-grandfather, who was someone extraordinary. So that was really a moment that I'll never forget.
Well, it sounds like it. I've got 2 more questions for you, if that's okay with you, Stéphanie. What excites you the most about the evolution of the fine wine industry today?
Well, I would say that more and more the links between the estate, the producers, ourselves, and the final consumer.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks to whom? Thanks to people like you. Tonight, I'm going to be meeting consumers that really drink our wines. It hasn't been the case for a long time, because we have all the distributors, the intermediaries, which of course play an important role. But I think more than a role, we have to get this strong connection with the consumer. And this is, I say, new, and I think it's good to continue to strengthen this relation with the final consumers. This is quite exciting to meet all these people, to establish this link, to have all these histories when they celebrate the birthday, anniversaries, anything that really gathers people around wine is something that we want to share with them. It creates a stronger link between the two of us, so it's very important. And also, what excites me, one thing that excites me is really, I'd say, the new markets. I think it's interesting to see, I have a long-term view with Château Angélus, and knowing that we have our traditional market that we never forget, we never leave aside, but thinking, tomorrow, India, Brazil, Mexico, other countries that we are, forecasting development in terms of a wine industry. I think it's super exciting.
Yes. No, and frankly, we're all in this business because of fashion, and I think that's also why this episode and why this podcast is created, is to talk about the magic of wine, share more about this beautiful thing which is meant to be shared among people. And so that's what excites me the most as well, is always to be hosting these evenings like we're going to have tonight with people, and just to be talking about this beautiful product, which is wine, and it's meant to be enjoyed with people.
Yeah,
so
I feel so blessed, to be born in this region, in this family, and this is why I have this sort of mission, really, this vocation from an early age to continue and to transmit and to share and to make Angélus really shine across the world.
So I've got one final question for you today. If you could share a bottle of Château Angélus with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
I think it would be a woman, a French woman, a lady called Edith Piaf. She passed away, but a very famous singer, and she was deeply inspiring. I think her life is really a lesson of humility, and she also in a movie, the Môme, La Vie en Rose. She was drinking Château Angélus. So she was a woman of good taste.
Yes, amazing. Very good. Excellent. Well, Stéphanie, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes, certainly. And that wraps it up for the first episode of The Magic of Wine. We're grateful and honored to have done this with Stéphanie from Château Angélus, and we look forward to the next one. Thank you.